And it seems it's okay to openly admit that we are stressed nowadays and not coping, while 20 or 30 years ago it was completely taboo. We never would admit we were struggling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of reasons for that. One of the things I always tell my clients, because with this kind of going to childhood and looking for reasons in the childhood, what that can lead to is becoming a situation where we put all the blame on our parents and then go into victim mode. Oh, woe is me, my parents were so horrendous or neglected me, and as a result I am the way I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we want to create a more empowered, free human being in the present. So you need to understand, first of all, that our parents were raised by parents who fought in a war,
Mm-hmm.
who were raised by parents who fought in a war, who
Mm-hmm.
were raised by parents who fought in a war.
Mm-hmm.
And you can keep going back in history until probably cave person days. So to just understand that at a sort of in a more modern level, what that meant was, if you think about the Second World War, the people coming back from the Second World War, all bar like maybe 1%, if we're lucky, of them,
Mm-hmm.
all of them had PTSD, full blown PTSD, the whole lot. Some of them were hospitalized, some of them committed suicide. In those days, the rest of them had to come back and rebuild society. So they couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for themselves, but they had to do it in a very rigid and structured way. They couldn't just, they needed to protect this emotional fragility that they had. And they did that by making sure that children were seen and not heard. Children were told to tiptoe around on eggshells because of grandpa. If you upset grandpa or if you upset father, and they have a meltdown, there's going to be hell to pay. The wives had to behave in a certain way so as not to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
Don't don't provoke the husband. At work, the workers had to behave in a certain way. Everybody had to be yes sir, no sir, three bags full sir. And the
Yeah.
workers themselves very often also were at the front, also traumatized, so they appreciated that order in society. And as a result, people feared emotions, because if somebody had provoked father or grandfather and they did have a meltdown, the repercussions were hectic. I mean, they might, they might become an alcoholic. They might have a mental breakdown and have to be admitted to a hospital. They might start beating somebody in the family.
Yeah.
There were dire repercussions to upsetting people's emotions. So there was a very healthy fear of emotions in those days, and people didn't mention it because it was actually really true. If you aggravated grandpa, he could well.
For sure.
So everybody
Yeah.
had to keep the
I
stiff up.
remember it.
Yeah, the stiff upper lip. What was your experience of it as a child?
Well, my grandmother was very loving,
Yeah,
had cuddles, whatever. My grandfather was grumpy.
yeah,
So you kept away from grandfather. You just didn't go there.
yeah,
So, and I'm not sure why he was like that, but it could have been the war, could have been bringing up big family, not too much money.
yeah,
But he was somebody you didn't play with or toy with,
yeah.
whereas the love and the cuddles came from my grandmother.
Wow,
So, yeah.
interesting. And your dad, did he fight in the war or not?
No, I think
Okay.
he was a farmer, and I think he might have had a couple of health problems, but I think in those days, if you were a farmer and producing food, you didn't necessarily have to go to war.
Oh, okay.
So that, and I grew up 4 years after the war had finished, so I
Wow.
don't really remember too much about it.
Yeah, yeah. And your grandfather obviously didn't.
Didn't discuss it in those days. Even if you spoke to somebody who had been in the war,
Yeah,
they would just not want to talk about it. They
yeah.
just said it was just too terrible. I don't want to go there, and
Absolutely.
they kept it to themselves. And obviously, that didn't help them
No,
coping with it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So it makes sense, doesn't
yeah.
it? That